Right. Passover class. I think you guys are going to like this. It's
Passover?
a very interesting idea. I don't think we've ever discussed this before. This is really something totally novel. And it's based on the Seder. But we talk about matzah, we talk about mortar. I think we've spoken about the egg and the neck, but we've never spoken about charoset before. Charoset hasn't gotten, so we've been here. I think Chabad has been here 20 years. We never did a class on charoset, so tonight's tonight. So everybody loves charoset, right? Everybody, and my kids say, Tati, I don't want to hear, relax. Tati, give me less myrrh and more charoset. I tell them, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to eat more myrrh and less charoset, but they don't want to hear. Some people, the matzah is flour and water. You can't, you're not allowed to eat egg matzah on the night of the Seder. Egg matzah is kosher for Passover, but so is kosher for Passover cookies. The night of the Seder, you can only eat plain matzah, which is flour and water. So what do some people do to make the matzah taste better? They'll take some charoset and...
Yeah, of course.
Well, in Chabad, by the way,
Do it for years.
in Chabad, we're very, very particular not to do that, because we don't want to make the matzah wet in any way, shape, or form. So
End up putting it out.
no, it's in your mouth. It's in your mouth. But we don't put the matzah. We don't put the matzah regarding. In fact, when I was a kid, my father was very particular not to even hold the matzah over the table. You eat matzah, you had to lean back. No matzah crumbs can go away. The Yiddish word you might see it printed on some packages is gebrachs.
Yep.
Gebrachs means where the matzah is made wet. In Hebrew, it's matzah-shruya, matzah that's soaked in water. So we don't do that, but there are plenty of people to do. In fact, we're going to learn that it wasn't made up necessarily now. This is a custom that goes back for millennia. People would put the charoset on the matzah. If you look at, took a text number 2. Text number 2. It says Amram lived in the 13th, 14th century. This is page 213. He says one should recite the Hamoitzi blessing when dipping, and then dip the matzah in the charoset. And the Rambam writes this, and he says, I don't understand why. Doesn't make any sense. The matzah represents liberty, freedom. Why do we have charoset?
To remind us of the mortar.
The mortar, and that represents the slavery. And the charoset is sweet. The mortar is bitter. Mela, we understand. But the charoset reminds us of the mortar that's sweet. So, like, you see the question on the board is what's the craze of eating some sweetness associated with suffering? It reminds me, by the way, I didn't have teachers like this. My father did. That in the olden days,
We're talking before electricity.
that when a teacher would give you a spanking, when he give you a patch is, you would have to say thank you.
Oh, sounds like my fraternity days.
Right? You would have to say thank you, right? The sweetness and the bitterness, right? So here we have sweetness. The charoset is sweet, but so the question is, let's how do the two go together? Okay. So, but actually, let's expand on the question, based on the text in the Haggadah. In the Haggadah, when we do the Seder, there's 3 paragraphs that you must say, and it's interesting. It's all the way, not all the way, but almost at the end of Magid, right before we wash our hands. And people are more like, how much more? But these, if you remember, if you've been to my Seder, these are like paragraphs we chant together, right? So, because these are 3 paragraphs you have to say. It's Pesach, Matzah, Mar. Pesach talks about the Pesach sacrifice. We don't have it anymore, but we talk about it. Then Matzah, we point to the Matzah. Mar, we point to the Matzah. So we put to the Mar. So we say text 3a. Why do we eat Mar? We eat Mar because to remember the
They embittered our life.
They embittered in our lives. And why do we eat charoset? also in the bitter in life. So what's the difference between matzah, mortar and charoset? So mortar represents the hard work, the middle life miserable. Charoset represents even worse. Charoset it's about the mortar. What do we need to talk about the mortar? Talk about the bricks. I mean, do we talk about the wheelbarrow? Do we talk about, what specifically about the mortar is so bad? So you look at text 3b. Rashi quotes a terrible, horrific thing the Egyptians would do. He says, when Moshe complained to God, why did he make it worse? He says, because the Egyptians took away the straw to make bricks. And what would the Egyptians do if the Jews didn't have enough materials to make bricks? Look at text number 3. For when the Jewish people ran short of mortar for make bricks,
They took the babies.
they ground the Jewish babies into powder and they used them as filler for mortar. So the mortar is bad. The charoset, that's unspeakable horror. I once saw an interview of a lady who watched, I think it was Schindler's List or something. He says, what you're seeing is 20% of what really is. You can't even explain what it is. I mean, we could run through the story of Pesach, but it was even more terrible. So now the question comes even stronger. How could charoset be sweet? Number one, and number two, how do you put charoset on the matzah? Matzah represents liberation, right? We say, why do we eat the matzah? See text 3c, right? What the paragraph that we have to say. Matzah zu shana oichlem shuma. It's matzah. Why do we eat it? Because God didn't give us a chance for the dough to rise. We wanted to make cheese danishes in black and whites, right? Could you imagine by the Seder at apple turnover?
I saw black and white cookies kosher for Passover.
I saw, but
But
something.
I didn't buy them.
In my experience, kosher for Passover cookies,
Yeah, I know.
they look good. They're like, you ever see those, how they make it things, the food in the commercials? I once saw something, they put glue in there, all these different things. It's like, it makes it look delicious.
They use them as glue to represent the milk.
Right, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
That's Pesach cookies, okay? It looks good in the package. The second you bite into it, you're like, this is, I remember, I grew up, we didn't have any of that in my house. Not for health reasons, because in my house we don't have any processed food.
Yeah.
So finally one time someone brought, I don't remember, I got a hold of Pesach black, I think it was black and whites. And after Pesach I said, and I opened it up, like,
I can't.
whoa!
I can't.
We went
It's all
through
sugar
this
and
last
margarine,
year.
that's all it is.
We got some last year and it was terrible.
It's sugar and margarine.
No, I make my own. Thank you very much.
It's like you eat that and your cardiac monitor goes bloop 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 right there. No. yeah, no thank you. People make a big deal about schmaltz, so I don't think those cookies are any better.
Macaroons aren't too bad though.
Yeah, the coconut's not my thing. So now we understand. Now we understand the question 2c when the Manig writes, says, I know there's a custom to put charoset in the matzah. I just don't understand. Where are we? I just don't understand why. Number one, how could charoset be sweet? Mortar is bitter. Makes sense. Fine. Charoset is sweet. How can it be sweet? And also, why are you putting it on? And why are you putting on matzah? Now, not everybody agrees with this custom to put charoset on matzah. You're thinking, why can't we do this? Right. Rabbi, if you did it more, I come to your Seder. Right? Maybe it makes this long Seder worth it. You gotta have your charoset on the matzah. Right? You know what Cyril always does on the second night of Pesach? She gives away the matzah to the charoset to the cleaning lady. Take it. What are you gonna do with it? So Rabbi Avram ben David, he is called the Ravid. The Ravid was a famous scholar from the 12th century. He lived at the same time as the Rambam. And you know what he's famous for? He is famous for writing a book that blasts the Rambam. Anytime he disagrees with the Rambam, he doesn't just disagree. He writes in very strong, but he does it in a very respectful way. Some people went over to him, you see the Rambam's this, the Rambam's this. No, Rambam's a great scholar. No, you can't say that. I didn't say that way, but it was a scholarly debate. But look at the way he writes. He says, nonsense. Zehevel. It's nonsense to put text 4. to put matzah, to put charoset in the matzah? And then again, and the Rambam, like always, doesn't tell us why. The Rambam just tells us the law of the custom. Doesn't tell us where he gets it from. The truth is, he says that many rabbis believe that the matzah should not be dipped in charoset. Oh man. So he says, and the custom is we don't do it, and that's what the Ravid says. You know, these were the Ravid is Ashkenazi, Rambam is Sephardi, but I don't think it has anything to do with those two. Okay, let's get into the let's understand.
Does Rashi say anything about it?
No, Rashi is not a book of law. Rashi is a book of commentary to explain. Rashi didn't write law.
Well, that's why I'm thinking maybe he could explain it.
No, but there's not in the
you
Gemara.
perplexed?
But in the Gemara, there's no place where it says to put the charoset on the. Rashi only comments on what the Gemara or the Torah says. Maimonides was the first one to codify law, and he didn't put any sources for his law. He just says this is the law. You ever hear Jerry Seinfeld's joke about the date of the milk? Right? They don't
What?
the date on the bottle of milk.
No.
They don't tell you about. Says this is the date. Don't mess with us. We're telling you that's the date.
Those are the same guys that put the date on the water bottle too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a suggestion.
Hey. All right. So the debate the Rebbe explains is, I don't know, the printer wants attention. The debate the Rebbe says is in how you're looking at the whole Seder. Now, normally, when you go into the holiday of Hanukkah, Shavuos, Sukkot, what do? We celebrate. Why? Because we were in the desert. Hashem took us out. Hashem protected us, right? Shavuos, Hashem gave us a there. We don't start with a whole backstory. We just go straight to the. Right? When your birthday, I don't celebrate 9 months before. Hey, the birthday, I don't care about the backstory. Right? Just give me cake. Chametz cake. Just thank you.
Well,
Pesach.
it depends on when your birthday is.
Exactly. Pesach is the one time holiday where we have to start with the backstory. Pesach, if you notice the structure of the Haggadah, we start at the beginning. We say in the beginning our forefathers. I mean, Abraham's parents were pagans, and then Avraham did something monumental. He believed in one God, and he got everyone to believe in one God. And then our forefathers were enslaved. We talk about the whole terrible thing. Why? In order to have a contrast of where we're coming from. You know, not everybody's accomplishments are the same. You were a teacher. You were a teacher. Not every student that gets 100 is the same. Not the same 100. Right? So, meaning that God took us out of Egypt. Yeah, but what if, I don't know, like, you know, or talking about Chaya. Chaya wanted to come home for Pesach, and we weren't sure, the flights, the rockets. I said, Chaya, worst comes to worst, you'll be stuck in Israel. It's not a terrible place to be stuck for Passover. It's not like
7 days.
but you have family, food's not a problem, you're gonna have matzah. It's not like you're stuck in, I don't know, in Bali, you know, like I don't know.
Understand.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so God took us out of Egypt. You know, God took us out of Egypt. Okay, but what's so bad about Egypt? I mean, now people are going to Egypt to come back to the United States, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we start from the bigger the contrast, the more the more you can appreciate details. So we start off. You see in text number 6. What's up? In text number 6, he says the Rambam says. And by the way, this is the halacha, the law, how the Haggadah has to be structured. The Haggadah is structured like Maimonides said. We begin by declaring that we were slaves to Pari, and describe all the suffering that he imposed on us. And then we conclude with all the miracles. That at the end of Magid, we make the blessing on the miracle with the second cup of wine. That's also that blessing is also an obligation. All the fluff. Beginning, right? Everyone gets excited. That's nice, but the obligation stuff is at the end where you want to. Now, so first of all, we want to appreciate the story. You know, you need to imagine. You know, I'm sure in a book, in a good book, or in a movie, something, right? You have to go to a backstory where the guy comes from. Everybody loves an underdog, right? Something, and then you feel, oh, the guy's a world champion. That's. But imagine the book open and the guy was boxing and he knocked him out. Great, right? So, not that much of a story. Well, it's nice that he won, but
That's if you bet on.
right? Exactly. Now that's what. So contrast is one way to appreciate the miracle. Another way is, and you've heard me say in the past few weeks, how the Rebbe was a big advocate that everyone should have a shmur matzah. And again, it's a reminder if anyone has Jewish neighbors, we've had some messengers in the community giving out, giving out matzah. Now, why is it so important? Because they talk about. Imagine you sat there around an empty table and say, by the way, 3,000 years ago, our forefathers went out of Egypt and they ate crackers. It was bad. You talk about the Mayflower, what they ate, I don't know,
What, the Mayflower?
and what they ate, whatever it is, I don't know.
Chicken.
Yeah, I don't think so. Middle of the ocean, right?
They chickens with them?
They brought a lot of animals on that boat. It stunk to high heaven.
Every ship sunk to high heaven. So, like Bill Cosby said, when God says, "Do you want to go down there? Who's going to clean that up?" But when you sit there and you have a piece of matzah, and you say, and this is the matzah that our forefathers ate, this is the bread our forefathers ate, it makes it a much more of a, in the antique market or in the sports memorabilia market, you can get any basketball or a shirt. You say, this is the shirt that Babe Ruth wore, or Michael Jordan wore. It means
It still got the smell from the sweat.
exactly it hasn't been washed. But if you sit and you eat the matzah, it changes the whole experience. And Egypt is such a pivotal. It's not. It's the birth of the Jewish people. That's why it's called the covenant, right? It's the the bris of the Jewish people. That's why it says in the Gemara, and we read about it in the it's part of the Haggadah, text number 7, that it's not just enough to read about the story. You have to make it personal. There's a great story. You ever heard of a rabbi named Yoel Gold? I'm sure you've heard of it. He makes all these nice stories. Remember we watched the documentary about the menorah in the temple?
Oh, yeah.
Were you here for that? We showed on Tisha B'Av. Oh, you were out of town.
We were out of town, but I
Right.
did see parts of it.
Right, so that rabbi, he makes all these documentaries. He's a very, very good storyteller. So people are always going over to him and telling him stories because they think it's interesting. So he said, I want to tell you a story about my daughter. A woman comes over to him in the middle of the supermarket and he has bags. So, yeah. So my daughter was outside a show. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Wait, 1 second. You gotta sell your chametz.
Shalom לכולם.
Yeah, we're doing a shir Torah. Here, so first of all, here, name and address to sell your chametz, okay? 1 second. Anyway, so he puts on the bags and he says, there was a cop was standing outside a synagogue and writing a ticket, and my daughter went and said, I'm sure it's one of the worshipers. Is it okay if I pay? He said, yeah, it's okay. And she picks up his bags. I said, it's a nice story, but that's not a story I could broadcast. So there's more. It's not bad. She said, my daughter wanted to see if it was really a worshiper or some other random person. And it was one of the worshipers. Okay, picks up his bags. I'm not done. He puts on his bags and she says, the worshiper was you. And he said, all of a sudden the story was important. Why? Because it's, it involved him, right? There's an old joke. Now Iran's in the news. Persians are said to be very, very cheap. You know what?
The what?
Persians are known to be very cheap.
I've heard that about the Scottish, but not about...
Anyway, so they said 2 Persians go to a doctor, and one Persian says, the doctor says to one person, what's wrong? He says, I have a nickel stuck in my throat. And they say,
what?
A nickel.
A nickel.
Nickel stuck in my throat. And he said, okay, yeah, we can fix that. What's your problem? It's my nickel, right?
It's my...
When you make the story of Passover personal, then it's making everything. Here's your matzah.
That's it.
You can stay for the Shir Torah.
My wife is in the car.
There you go. You don't want to
I
keep
write
moving.
no donation.
What?
איך אני יכול לתרום?
You just text me. I'll charge your card.
Okay.
The-
Just charge it.
If you don't give me an amount, I'm going to keep going until it stops.
Keep going.
So text me how much, okay?
100 is good?
Whatever you say.
Do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the story, it's not just
Sameach.
Chag Sameach. You have a place for the seder, right?
I don't know if I'm flying or not.
Okay, I'll text you. Okay, the seder's at my house. I'll text you that schedule, okay?
Okay.
All right. So when it comes to Judaism, it's not just enough to talk about an event, right? I remember. You ever been to the National Archives?
No.
Not the building, no.
I mean, you talk about the Constitution. You talk about the Declaration of Independence. When you stand here,
I did see the Declaration of Independence, though. Way back when, they put it on tour.
they took it on. They took the
They
Declaration.
took it out on tour. They had a special van, a special box it was
Really?
kept
Was
in,
that in
a
seven-
special
was that in
display.
1976?
On the 200th, on the bicentennial.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It-
Now we have 250 years this summer.
Oh yeah. No, I was working on the security equipment
Oh, wow.
for them, and I got to see it.
That's pretty cool. So when
Yeah.
you stand there and you look at the document, it's a whole different experience. I mean, really, meaning you could talk about an event, but when you stand, when you go to Israel, and you talk about King David. I remember I've had the merit to be in Israel for Tisha B'Av, when we mourned the destruction of the temple. To be by the Western Wall on Tisha B'Av, it's a totally different experience. You think of 2,000 years right here. You know what I mean? So when you could talk about the story of Exodus, but when you eat the matzah, eat the maror, it makes it a whole different experience, and it makes it personal. And we internalize it, right? Then the question is, with the matzah, how are you getting out? But that's a different problem, right? So now, the Bach. There's a rabbi in the 16th century, 16th, 17th. His name was the Bach. His name was Abriel Circus. He was a very famous halacha commentator, and he says in text number 8, maybe the reason for dipping the matzah in the charoset is to show that we went from suffering to liberation. So we have both. Remember the contrast, right? We said we go from suffering to liberation. So we have from charoset to that might be it. That might be it. So now the Rebbe says this is the discussion. It's really a psychological discussion. It's a psychological debate, psychoanalysis. How do you talk about these days? Everyone has problems. Used to be no one had problems. No one went to doctor. No one went to psychiatrist. No one spoke to anybody. Right? No one had problems. These days, everybody has trauma. Everybody needs a therapist. Right? Everyone's special. Right? But let's say, for example, someone really has issues. Right? The question is, how much do you want a person to dive into their past to appreciate how far they've come? Let's say the person moved on. Right? Is there a risk that a person starts, mixing up in that chalent, get stuck there and get all depressed? Or we say, no, the person will stop. It's not recording? Uh-oh. No, something's wrong. Low battery. That's it. That is a problem. I think I think it's still recording. But it's low battery. I think we're gonna have to bring the power thing. Okay.
You can plug it into here with the cord.
So the argument the Rebbe says is a psychological argument. The Rambam says that it's okay to delve into the to mix happy with the sad, meaning because it's okay because a person will come out on the other side. It's all right. Don't worry about it. So you talk about the past. You mix the joy and the sadness. It'll come out. Avraham says if we focus too much on the pain, could be a person won't come out on the other side. Meaning he'll get too much stuck into the stuck in the pain. Not everybody can reflect on the past and appreciate how much they've grown. Sometimes they get locked up in the past, and who knows what's going to happen. That's why the matzah is the matzah, the charoset is the charoset, and we keep it separated. We mention briefly the suffering, but we focus more on the liberation. The Rambam says we can mix both. So listen, you see, people that went through hard times in their life, even Holocaust survivors, right? Right, some of them were able to, grow, and some were able to move on, and it almost seemed like everything was okay. And some of them were, couldn't. The pain was too big. Talking about interviews, and I saw. It came back to me just now. This lady who was a consultant on Schindler's List. The guy who played the villain in Schindler's, Amon Goth.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Schindler's in years, but right. So he studied the partners, the part and the character. She said that she was in the camp, and she was a survivor. She said when she saw him, he did it so well. She started shaking uncontrollably, and she said, as much as you think he's bad, that's nothing. So they couldn't even portray how bad he really was. Talking about the kid, even the one when the Egyptians did to the kids, you have to hear some of the things a monster, a terrible monster. Some people can move on, some people can't move on. It's really an argument between Avram, the Ravid, and the Rambam. What they're arguing really is, how do we deal with the past? Do we just mention it and that's it, or is it okay to move on? Huh?
The actor who played that part was Ralph Finney.
Okay.
Phineas, with an S.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Exodus for the exile for a second. One of the lines in the beginning of the Haggadah is, we start off saying, "Hey lach ma'anya," right? This is the bread our forefathers ate, and it says Hashata Avdin. It said Shana Babnei Chayrin. So we're slaves, but then there's a part that says we're free. See, when we were interrupted, the printer didn't make noise, but right. It says now we're free. How can you say now we're free? There were times in Jewish history that some of the Jewish people were free. The Maharal, who lived in Prague in the 1500s, when they were under the control of the Christian church and there were blood libels, life for a Jew around Passover time. We look forward to Purim and Pesach time. This time of year was hell. It was anxiety, and you had to be very, very careful, and you had to be very, very transparent where you are. If you had to meet a Gentile, exactly, especially a younger Gentile, you had to be very, very careful, because if you did anything that could be perceived that it might be using Christian blood for matzah, and I know to us it seems ridiculous, but Passover time was a very stressful time for Jews, not because for cleaning and cooking, because there's a time there were pogroms. This was a time, around Easter. It was a terrible time. How can you say now we're free? So the Maharal, who lived in a time of terrible persecution, that's why the legend is he made the Golem. Because the legend is because of the blood libel. That's why he made a Golem. Do you know? And it is off subject. Do you know that he stopped a blood libel just by being born? You know, sir? The Maharal was born on the first night of Pesach. What happened was, his father was a very distinguished member, the leader of the community. I'm not sure which community. I'm not sure if he was born in Prague. I know he wasn't always the rabbi in Prague. He was a rabbi in other places. But his father was a rabbi of the community, and they wanted to plant evidence for a blood libel. So these two guys came. One or two guys came with a sack with a dead Christian child that had died. This is the 1500s. Kids died all the time. People died. No medicine. And as they were coming close to the house, and they were going to put it in his house, in his yard, in his cellar, I don't know, whatever it is, all of a sudden they heard a woman screaming. So they said, "Oh, she's screaming because she spotted us," and they went running, and they went running, and the cop stopped them because he thought they were crooks. In the middle of the night, you're running with a big bag, a heavy bag. So what turns out that thank you. Whatever. It turns out she wasn't screaming because she saw them. She was screaming because she was in labor. and anyway, so the Maral says something fantastic. The Maral says that what did the Exodus really accomplish? What's the big deal that Hashem took us out of slavery if we were enslaved again? What's the right? I ask somebody to put on tefillin. He said, "No, I did it yesterday." So I say, you ate breakfast yesterday? Yeah. You ate breakfast today? Why? So what's the big deal that God took us out of Egypt? I mean, it's nice, but if we're enslaved again, then what's the? So you could argue they should celebrated Exodus and the Pesach from the original Exodus until the destruction of the first temple.
I'd say that the first Exodus would be like the last Exodus.
The last Exodus is going to mirror.
Yeah.
So the Maral says something fantastic. He says, look at text number 9. The Maral says, he says that what the going out of Egypt represented was the Jewish people, even if their bodies are enslaved, they're always free people. Being free is not only a physical thing. Being free is a mental thing. You can be enslaved, or you can be persecuted, but still up here you're free. I mean, they can't control your brain, so to speak.
And it goes the other way too.
It goes, which by the way, was why the Jewish people never couldn't go into the land of Egypt, into the land of Israel, because they couldn't get rid of that.
They still, that mentality of
Yeah.
being a slave.
Yeah, the very small mentality. I mean, think about it when the spies came back and they said, "Oh, God can't conquer the land of Canaan." And you look at it from the outsider like, what are you, stupid? Really? The God who just last year crossed the sea, right, and punished the Egyptians, and the fact that you ate bread from the sky and you drank water out of a rock, and all of a sudden, the God who seems to suspend rules of nature daily, but somehow, no, I mean, it's very small-minded, but that was their problem. But what the Maral says, that the Exodus was for the old Jewish people, is that once we go out of Egypt, we'll never go back to Egypt. Mentally, a Jewish person is always free, which by the way, what drives the anti-Semites crazy. Because why can't you guys just stay down? Be secondary, be lowly. Look at you, you're persecuted and everything else. So throughout history, every time they try to turn something into an embarrassing thing, the dunce cap, this and that, we turned it into a fashion statement. So one rabbi wrote, I think it was about the cap. He said, if it was more comfortable, I would wear it to sleep. It's like, like that's, that kind of thing. So one of the greatest stories of this idea in our times was the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe, the Russians tried to intimidate him day and night. And he showed the Russians that, say in Yiddish, you don't take place by me. You're a zero. So he was exiled. He was arrested after 7 years of running underground yeshiva. It was very dangerous. If parents sent their kids to a cheder, 3 years in the gulag. If you're a teacher, 10 years. For multiple offenses, execution. Imagine what they wanted to do for the leader of the whole criminal ring. So originally they sentenced him to execution. Then on the 3rd of Tammuz, they commuted the sentence to 10 years of exile. Then on the 12th of Tammuz, the sentence was commuted to freedom, and he was let go after 9 days. But when he got on the train on the 3rd of Tammuz, the 3rd of Tammuz was Shabbos. On the 4th of Tammuz, no, it wasn't Shabbos. Sorry, the 12th of Tammuz was Shabbos. No, it was the 3rd of Tammuz was Shabbos. On the 4th of Tammuz, everyone came to see him because they thought they're losing their Rebbe for 10 years now. He's going to middle of nowhere, Russia. Look at text number 10. In front of the Russian authorities, right? He just was arrested. His sentence was just commuted, right? Keep in mind, his sentence was just commuted from execution, the exile, for Jewish education. In front of them, what does he say? He says, guys, listen to me. Every nation on earth must know that our bodies are subjected to exile and control of other countries. Our neshamas, however, were never driven into exile, never subjected to the powers of others. We must declare openly for all to know that concerning our religion, this is in Yiddish. We might think the Gentiles that don't know Yiddish. That's not true, by the way. There were Jewish sections of factions of the KGB that their job was to persecute the religious community, and that was run by Jews. There was that part of the KGB was called the Yevseksia. It was run by Jews persecuting Jews. They understood Yiddish. So the fact that he's saying this in Yiddish is they understood. We must declare openly for all to know that concerning our religion, Torah, mitzvahs, and Jewish customs, we have no overlords. No method of compulsion can be effected against us. We must declare with our powerful, intense Jewish abstinence, intransigence, what's that good word? Backed by the thousands of years of Jewish self-sacrifice. It says, touch not my anointed one. There's a quoting from Tehillim. May Hashem grant us the courage not to be swayed by bodily torture. On the contrary, accept it with joy. Every punishment we receive, God forbid, for sustaining a Jewish school, studying Torah, and observing the mitzvahs must fortify our courage in the sacred work of bolstering Judaism. We must remember that imprisonment and hard labor are transient, and Torah and mitzvahs are eternal. This is what the previous Rebbe said. What is he saying? He's saying that exile, persecution, that's a bodily thing. Our neshamas are always above it, and this comes to answer the question of why the charoset is sweet. Charoset shouldn't be sweet. Charoset should be bitter, like the myrrh, because the myrrh represents the persecution against our bodies. The charoset, well, it was very, very bitter, but they couldn't ever take away that pintel yid, that Jewish spark. You remember Shalom Mordechai Rabashkin? Remember that guy who was arrested and sentenced to 27 years for bank fraud? A religious guy up in Iowa. Trump in the first term's commuted a sentence. You remember this?
What was his name again?
Doesn't matter. Keep
Shalom Mordechai. So this guy was the biggest. He had the biggest meat plant in the United States. Agri processors up in Postville, Iowa. And in order to get a bank loan, he overinflated his numbers, and he got the bank loan and he was paying. But what happened was there was an overzealous prosecutor who wanted to become a judge, arrested him, and they sentenced him some ridiculous thing. The judge, I think the prosecutor asked for 9 years, the judge 27 years. It was something crazy. Anyway, so he comes into prison, and they say, listen, you have to take off your yarmulke, and you have to take off your tzitzit. Huh?
I'm letting him know that the Biden administration was the one that did all this.
No, it wasn't. It was before Biden.
No. It was the Biden administration that sentenced him. It was the Biden,
Trump won, released him.
And released him. Biden put him in.
You mean Obama, you mean? Obama. Biden was after Trump.
How long was this guy in prison for?
8 years, something.
8 years?
Yeah.
I heard that it was a little different than that.
No.
Like it was something that the Biden administration pushed, and it was actually Trump that undid it.
Well, Trump did it, but Trump in the first term did it.
Yeah.
But it was Trump, Biden, Trump. Anyway, so...
No, hold on.
Yeah, you're getting confused. It's Obama. Anyway, so they said, listen, you got to take off your yarmulke and sit this night in prison. So he tells them, I'll do anything you want me to do, physically. But my soul, my yarmulke and tzitzit stay. So they said no. So they grabbed him, they threw him into solitary, no yarmulke and tzitzit, and he says, listen, I'm in control of the Eibishter, and that's the way it's going to be. The next day, they gave him back his talson, his yarmulke and tzitzit. Then another time they had a problem, they put his hands behind, they handcuffed him hands behind his back, they threw him into solitary, because he didn't want to take off his yarmulke and tzitzit. He got actually infections in his wrist, he had to go to the hospital. But they gave him back his Jama consensus. And then in 2017, 18, whatever what it was,
December 2017.
2017. So he lost his final appeal, and then he started dancing because he realized that the only one who can release me now is the Eibusher. No, there's no more like chapter 146 of Tehillim. Don't trust in man. There's no only one. And then I think like a week later or something, Trump commuted us. It was on Hanukkah. It was the last day of Hanukkah. It was a crazy miracle. So the charoset represents the fact that that our bodies. Inside the mortar represents the bodies. The charoset represents that the soul, the pintali, the Jewish spark, can never be imprisoned. Like the Behold Eloi, the Maharal, continues in text number 11, and he says, "So the hard labor they imposed, but it was not entirely unbearable. The mortar was a breaking point. Nothing was harder than the mortar. So this is why we place the symbol of mortar on our Seder table. So now we can understand. So now let's get back to the argument between the Rambam and the Ravid. Rambam said we combine the two, and the Ravid said no. You have to split it. According to the Ravid, according to the Rambam, it says we can have both of them together to understand that although times are bad, but we're inherently free. That no matter what you throw at us, the Jewish people will inherently free. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to us. It says the Ravid he disagreed. He said freedom is indivisible. You can only celebrate absolute freedom, where our souls are free and our bodies are free, and that's why we don't mix the matzah with the charoset. Now, who is the custom like? When we do the mitzvah of matzah, do we put anything on the matzah? No.
Yeah.
No. Matzah, no.
Not the
No.
the mortar.
No. When we do the mitzvah of matzah,
No, we just
don't
eat the
do- you
matzah.
don't-
just right.
No, you just
We-
say
we
the
don't get
blessing
it
and
away.
eat it.
No,
You
you're
say
not allowed
the
to.
blessing and eat it.
You make the blessing and eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Alakim has matzah.
right. You say hamotzi achilas matzah, and then you eat it. But it's a whole debate of how do you celebrate freedom? Can you celebrate partial freedom? According to the Rambam, he says yeah. According to the Ravi, he says no. Let's look how the Rebbe explains it. He says text number 12. He says so based on the above, we can explain the argument between the Rambam and the Ravi about dipping the matzah in charoset. When the temple stood, it was possible to entirely fulfill the commandment, to remember being a slave and going free, as if we were ourselves enslaved and granted freedom. Therefore, everyone agreed that it's okay to dip the matzah in charoset. However, now that today we're in exile, we can't fulfill it in its entirety. Therefore, the question is whether to fulfill it in part. We feel it in part, or can we celebrate being redeemed from this unique intrinsic subjugation to Egypt, despite being back in the circumstantial subjugation? Like the Maharal said, we can be enslaved circumstantially, but our souls never. According to the Rambam, he believed that it's possible to celebrate the commandment in part. He therefore rules they could dip the matzah in charoset. According to the Ravid, held that freedom can't be parsed. We're either free or you're not. Although we tell the story of Exodus in detail, we nevertheless can fulfill its entirety to the commandment. So the lesson is, like this. So why today is everyone go crazy over charoset? Everybody wants more charoset. Now today everyone's putting things on the avocado, charoset, the whole pizza, cream cheese.
Yuck.
What?
What's it on your pizza?
No. It's got to be pepperoni. Pepperoni. Is that what they put in the roses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
But it's interesting, by the way, the fact. So you might say the reason why people do it is because they don't know better. It's not true. If you look at the Code of Jewish Law, text 13, the charoset has to have sweet ingredients. If you look at text number 13. The Code of Jewish Law says that you should have the things that the Jewish people are compared to: a date, some people nuts, Pomegranates.
What do you call me?
Exactly. And apples. I mean, people have different. I think the Chabad, generally the Chabad recipe is pears, apples, and nuts. I believe. But the Alter Rebbe has a verse to compare all of them. So you can't just say that the fact that it's sweet is because we don't know any better. But the Rebbe points out in the Sikha, the last point, he says that now in the time of the end of exile, in the beginning of the times of Mashiach, in the footsteps of Mashiach, he calls it Ikfasad the Mashiach. He quotes the Gemara language, the footsteps of Mashiach, where all the tests have been passed and all the suffering has already been suffered. There's nothing more to prove. What's coming out? The pintaliyah, the sweetness. So that's why everybody's all excited to do these mitzvahs. They're putting the charoset on the matzah. You know, we only serve the matzah until the last second. Imagine we had the matzah there, and people would be like, you know. I remember the first time my father came to my brother's seder. It was a Chabad Seder. My brother told my father, so listen, don't look, okay? Do yourself a favor, don't look, all right? I tell you, we grew up in a house where, you know, I think I mentioned this, there's some families where they eat matzah in a different room. So you shouldn't mix the matzah with anything liquid, right? But, you know, now people I want to mix the sweetness with the redemption. Because like...
I don't understand, why don't look?
Because I told you, I grew up, nothing went together with the matzah. So you're gonna get all nervous that people are. So just don't let it bother you. Now my father's used to it already. This is going back 30 some years. But now that the end with our pintaliyah, that Jewish spark is coming out, we're revealing the sweetness that no matter what you can throw at us, the Inquisition, this, that, October 7th, whatever it is, the rockets you can throw at us. The Jewish people are still. We're still here, and we're still here. We're not only surviving. We're thriving. We're growing. We're growing our Judaism. There's more proud Jews today than at one of any point of history. So that's the charoset. So we got to tap into that Pesach energy.
Another question.
No, yeah, go ahead.
I seem to remember somewhere that I read that Rabbi Gamliel,
yeah.
said something about mixing the charosis, the matzah, and the mortar together.
That's Hillel.
That was Hillel.
Hillel, but that's a zecher. No, that's right. That's korech. Korech is the sandwich.
Uh-huh.
But that we do as a zecher, as a remembrance.
They call that Hillel sandwich.
Yeah. Kenos Hillel, right? It's called a zecher, a remembrance. Mm-hmm. What they used to do we're not fulfilling the mitzvah of matzah and maror when we eat the sandwich. We already have done the mitzvah of matzah and maror.
Uh-huh.
What we're doing is we remember what they used to do. You know, by the way, matzah used to be soft. You know that, right?
Like a soft taco?
Like a lafa. You go to Kosher Central, not Kosher. You go to Pita Plus, right? You can get shram and a lafa.
Yeah.
What do you think they used to eat? They used to eat shram. What's shram? Lamb. The chicken, but lamb. But the real shram is lamb.
Yeah.
Lamb. Some spicy, right? Schug, right? And a lafa.
A little bit of hummus.
No, you can't put anything.
Yeah, I
in.
can't
No,
put
but
hummus
that's
on.
what Hillel did. That's what Hillel did, right? He did. That's what it is. Now you know why I want Mashiach to come. So we don't have to eat this hard matzah. It'll be a lot better, right?
So how do they keep it soft?
No, they banned soft matzah.
They banned it.
Yeah, they banned soft matzah like 500 years ago.
Why? Okay.
Because there used to be people who would bake the matzah on their own. And how much matzah? It used to bake matzah daily. People didn't have, so when you're baking your 3, 4, 5 matzah, whatever matzahs, you can be very careful that the matzah is baked through. But when you had commercial bakeries started, or community bakeries, and now you're not making a few, now you're making hundreds, the rabbis were concerned that they're not baking the dough through, and that's chametz. The closest thing to chametz is matzah. Right? So,
Yeah. Well, let's face it. Chametz is wheat.
Exactly. So what do you have to be the most careful with? Matzah. So because the rabbis were afraid, it's a legitimate concern. I mean and the punishment for eating chametz on Pesach is so severe. So the rabbis said we're not doing the thick matzah, the soft matzah. We're just going to do the thin crackers, which we know can bake through. And that's why it's been that way for like 500 years.
18
But
minutes.
huh?
18
No,
minutes.
18 minutes is that round. It's actually a few minutes. If you look at the video, you go to a bakery. From the time they mix the flour and water till it's actually baked, there's a few minutes.
When did they put in,
What's like after 18 minutes is they clean all. In 18 minutes, they take all the paper. They sand down all the rolling pins. They wash out. Yeah.
when did they put in the decree about not also mixing chicken and milk?
Ooh, I don't know. When I don't know.
I think it was like a little after Akiva's time.
Sure, not earlier.
Yeah, I'm just imagining David and Solomon just eating like the
I don't
best
know.
matzah with chicken and cheese in it.
I
In
don't know.
Beit HaMikdash, just like did you?
No,
this
no,
is
but
the
no,
best Passover
no for
ever, guys.
for Passover. No, for the Karban Pesach, you couldn't mix anything in it. It was Pesach, Mar, Matzah. That's the mitzvah. Now we don't have that. So there's three different in a row on the Seder. So you have what was that? It died. So you have matzah, which is biblical. Then you have mortar, which is rabbinical. Then you have the sandwich, which is custom. It's
okay.
I'm not trying to degrade or each one is important, but it's different. Okay, have a good week. Have a happy kosher Pesach.
Whoop, whoop.